Welcome back to Caps Hockey Review. Two more games to discuss with you. All-Star Weekend is just around the corner. We have a win. We have another loss, unfortunately. A couple Caps will head to Vegas for All-Star Weekend. We'll break it all down. Caps Hockey Review. Let's go. And off we go. Caps Hockey Review underway yet again. Another win, another loss. I think I'm going to say it 100 more times this year. The search for consistency continues. Now, am I going to sit here and tell you the Caps played two bad games? No, that's not what I'm doing today. They definitely had some rough stretches in these games. They had definitely some parts where it's like, oh boy, this team does not look good. But they also had parts of both of these games that made you think, okay, wow, they're struggling right now, but they're a resilient bunch, and eventually it's going to start to go kind of their way. So starting with Pittsburgh, that was a heck of a hockey game. I said it in the previous video. I would love to see the Caps shellac the Penguins, but these overtime thrillers, I mean, that's all you can ask for out of a rivalry game as purely a fan of hockey, looking at it not from your being a fan of one team in particular. These two teams going to overtime, taking it almost past overtime there. Dmitry Orlov got the winner with less than a minute to go. That was a great game. Great hockey game. I think the concerning part for me were the shots on goal. I mean, the Caps were pretty limited to what they were able to accomplish through the first two periods. They looked much better in the third, but the Penguins, I mean, when you look around the league at teams that allow the least amount of shots on goal per game, the Caps are right at the top, second only to the Carolina Hurricanes. That was not true in this Pittsburgh game. The Penguins hung almost 50 shots on the Caps. I believe 41 of those came through two periods. So the Penguins, just a ton of shots in this thing. The Caps were significantly outshot those first two periods. They made up some ground in that third period, but that's not a good way to try to win a hockey game, giving up this many shots, especially to a team as talented as the Penguins. Yes, I'm a Caps fan. I do not like the Penguins. However, I am not so biased in my fandom that I cannot acknowledge that a hockey team is good regardless of how I feel about them because of my fandom. So, the Pittsburgh Penguins are a very talented hockey team. I mean, Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Chris Letang, they've been there forever. Crosby's still doing Crosby things. Letang is playing like he's 25. And Malkin he's dangerous. I mean, I don't know if he's quite found his stride just yet after all the time he missed. And we've got young guys too for the Penguins doing great things. Jake Gensel probably flies under the radar quite a bit, lives in the shadow of these other three, but he's a huge contributor to this team. So giving up that many shots to guys like this, probably pretty lucky to get out of there with a win. Now, there's some bigger news within this game. Vitek Vanacek gets the start. He's been on a tear lately. He's been really, really solid. Looking at his last 5, 6, 7 games, he's been really great. Well, he gets hurt right off the rip here. Only saw 2 shots in this game before he got run into by Kasperi Kapanen. Leaves the game, upper body injury, did not return, did not dress for the Oilers game. I don't really know a timeline on him just yet, but the carousel keeps spinning. So, Ilya Samsonov coming in cold against the Penguins, one of the NHL's hottest teams over the last month or so. That could be an ugly situation. But what did he do? He answered the bell. Ilya Samsonov played probably the best game we've seen him play in the last probably 4 to 6 weeks. I mean, he was great. He made outstanding saves. He made all the saves he should have made. That was a great performance. A fantastic performance. He saw a ton of shots, and that's when I think he's probably at his best, is when he's seeing a lot of shots, he can really get dialed in, and he can be a lot more effective. So that's a great game for Washington. I mean, Evgeny Kuznetsov continuing his scoring, and we'd see that against the Oilers as well. For everybody else, I mean, it was a depth effort. I mean, Nick Dowd chipping in a goal. You need all hands on deck when you play these kind of games, and the Caps had that. They were able to weather the storm. Samsonov made him some big saves, and they're eventually able to pull it out in overtime. Dmitry Orlov, a great shot on that. That's a great game, especially for a team like the Caps. You're getting outshot. You were down in the game at one point. They battled back, and they found a win. That's the kind of confidence boost this team needs, and they're going to need another one now. So, Pittsburgh game was great. I mean, the only problem with it is you take it almost to a shootout. You're on the first half of a back-to-back, and you got to travel home after that. That doesn't really tee you up very well for the second half of this back-to-back against the Edmonton Oilers. Leon Draisaitl, Connor McDavid, two probably the top 5 players in the world right now. So that's tough. I mean, long game. You know, a lot of guys played a lot of big minutes, traveling back to Washington, and you got to play these two. And obviously, the Edmonton Oilers have slid a little bit. They got off to a really good start this season, but they've fallen out of a playoff spot. Will they, won't they make the playoffs? It's tough to say. It's kind of up in the air right now. For hockey's sake, to have Connor McDavid being, for my money, the best player in the NHL, probably the best player in the world, to have him in the playoffs is such a boost for the National Hockey League. To have a guy at his skill level, and Leon Draisaitl's right there too, to have two guys like that on the same team that make the kind of plays they make and do all these flashy things that you see on highlights, it's fantastic for the NHL to have these two guys in the playoffs. Will they, won't they? We'll have to wait and see, but it would be nice to see him get there. Moving on to Wednesday. Got my days mixed up a little bit there. Wednesday night, Caps hosting the Edmonton Oilers for the only time this season, barring a finals appearance by both of them. Caps got off to a horrible start. I mean, Ilya Samsonov gets the nod from Peter Laviolette. He obviously was not the starter in Pittsburgh, but played just about a full game. I mean, he played a lot. He made a ton of saves. So, a little surprised to see him get the net here, but Laviolette's response was, well, goalies just play all 82. I think he can handle it. Caps get in trouble early. They give up 3 goals really early in the game. I mean, one's a power play goal, one's a kind of a weird bounce off of McDavid. Samsonov gets yanked from this one pretty quickly. We'd see Phoenix Copley come in relief. Phoenix played pretty well, but the Caps, I mean, you're on the second half of back-to-back. You're at home. You have to find a way to at least make a game of this. They're down 2-0. They take a penalty. Wilson ends up in the box, go down 3-0. Game's barely even 10 minutes old. They could have just thrown in the towel and called it a night. They didn't. They battled back. I mean, it took them a while. They didn't end up tying the game until I believe it was the third period. But they battled back. And I think they owned pretty much all the second half of this game. There were points after Kuznetsov had tied it. I mean, he had a crossbar. The way the Caps were playing, I I firmly believe they played well enough to win, and Edmonton was probably pretty fortunate to get out of there with that win. Mikko Koskinen shutting down the Caps there at the end, but the Caps shoot themselves in the foot again. Giving up a shorty. You have less than 5 minutes to go in the third period. You're tied. You get a power play. Now, if ever there's a time, and I've skipped over some huge news, I will jump back to it. But if ever there is a time that you need this power play to find some traction, it's right now. And they didn't. They give up a shorthanded goal that ends up being the game winner. That just can't happen. That cannot happen. That was just such a deflator. I mean, as a fan, it's a deflator. I can't imagine what it does to the guys on the ice, on the bench. You've worked so hard. You climbed all the way back from being down 3-0, and you have a chance to get a lead and get out of here with the win, and you blow it. That's tough. That's really tough. Now, the way they played the second half of this game is an encouraging sign to me that hopefully this team is turning the corner and they're starting to find themselves again. Now, the big news going into this one, you're missing Vitek Vanacek, but Alex Ovechkin tests positive for COVID-19 on the last day the NHL is testing asymptomatic players. And the captain comes up positive. Wow. That is unfortunate. Obviously, you don't have him for this big game against the Oilers. He will miss All-Star Weekend. I mean, he's played enough All-Star games. That's probably not really a huge heartbreaker for him, but it sucks. I mean, as fans, you like to see those guys make it to the All-Star game. Of course, now Tom Wilson will get to go to his first All-Star game. Wow. No Vanacek, no Ovechkin. They still almost found a way to win. Obviously missing Ovi on the power play. That's huge. That could have made a difference. But this team, I mean, they have to stop shooting themselves in the foot. This shorthanded goal they gave up, they make silly mistakes, it seems like, in a lot of these games that end up costing them. And it's just like, just play the game. All these guys know how to play the game. Obviously they do, because they wouldn't be at this level if they didn't. And it just seems like they outthink themselves at times. That's my take on it. I'm going to keep things a little bit shorter today. I want to get into All-Star Weekend a little bit. Obviously, Ovechkin out. Tom Wilson will replace him. Wilson gets his first All-Star appearance. Evgeny Kuznetsov, of course, as I mentioned, will also play in the All-Star game and take part in the festivities this weekend. Great. I mean, the NHL's worst nightmare since John Scott got into the NHL All-Star game, Tom Wilson in the All-Star game. That's a sentence I never thought I would hear myself say. Tom Wilson is in the All-Star game. Wow. That's huge. I mean, it's a huge bonus for him. It's a fun weekend. I mean, I wish every player could get the opportunity to experience it at least once, but obviously not everybody does. But enough about that. The events. Kuzi will take part in the fastest skater. Willie will take part in the hardest shot. There's some exciting new events they're rolling out specifically for Vegas for this All-Star game. I'm excited for it. I am much more excited for the skills competition on Friday than I am for the All-Star game. I'm not a huge fan of the All-Star game or the All-Star tournament, I guess it is now. They spiced it up a little bit a few years ago, going to that 3-on-3 tournament as opposed to just, regular game. It was fun. It was exciting. It was different. But I think what it boils down to is the same issue. Nobody tries. I mean, you see some sweet goals, you see some sweet moves, but nobody's really trying, and it's hard to get interested when the guys on the ice are, they're just out there having fun, which is great, but that's not exactly the most entertaining hockey in the world to watch. So I will absolutely be watching the skills competition. I don't know about the All-Star tournament though. We'll see. I don't leave a comment below. Let me know what you think about maybe, I mean, just All-Star games in general. I mean, I know MLB put some stakes on theirs where, the winning I guess league in their case gets home field advantage in the World Series. So there's a reason for guys to work hard in there. I'm curious. Do you guys think there's something that needs to change for these All-Star games to make it more interesting, to maybe put some stakes on it for these players? Let me know what you think. Leave a comment. Seriously. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Away from the plug now. All-Star Weekend is going to be a ton of fun. It's in Las Vegas. There's people pushing for it to be in Vegas more often. I think Vegas is a great place to have it. I don't know if the league will ever do it. I mean, teams obviously like the ability that, to have this marquee event in the NHL season be hosted by, your city, your team. I think we'll continue to see that, but maybe Vegas will be a little more heavy in the rotation. Anyway, looking toward next week, because obviously no games Thursday night, travel day for all the All-Stars. Friday, Saturday are All-Star festivities. Sunday will be the travel back, I believe. So no games till Monday. We will not see our Washington Capitals again until Tuesday against the Columbus Blue Jackets. Now, this is an interesting part of the season. I apologize there. I had a weird shiver. Anyway, I will try to edit that out, but if I can't, that's weird. Anyway, the Caps. Next week, Blue Jackets, Canadians, the next two games should be winnable games. Well, I say that. This team is they're so just entrenched in this struggle. Who knows? I mean, if they pull out 2 wins, awesome, but I guess I should lower my expectations a little bit. The NHL is filling up. This would have been the the Olympic break. I don't know if the intention was always to have All-Star game and then go straight to the Olympics. I don't know if that was the idea, but that's where this ended up. No All-Star break, obviously. Mostly makeup games in these 2-3-ish weeks here where we would have been at the Olympics for the NHL. So for the Caps, looking for consistency. I mean, looking for them to put together a consistent, solid effort for 60 minutes. We've seen it in flashes these last 2 games. We've seen them really, really make great pushes, especially late in games, but they need to get better in their starts, and they need to maintain it throughout all 3 periods or into overtime, whatever it takes. Whether it takes, come playoff time, that's what it's going to take. I mean, continuous OT in the playoffs, it doesn't matter if it takes 3 periods or if it takes 10. They have to put it all together. That's what it's going to take for this team to get out of this slide, get out of this slump, and get back to winning hockey games and looking like a competitive team in the NHL in that playoff picture. And until that happens, I don't have a lot of faith in this team. So that's what I'm looking for. More consistency, better efforts on a regular basis. Hopefully for this goaltending situation to stabilize. I mean, Samsonov had another chance to jump up and grab that starting job. And I think last night he really kind of dropped the ball. The team in front of him absolutely dropped the ball, so you can't pin it all on Sammy, but it's going to continue. This goalie battle is going to continue. Obviously with Vitek hurt, we're going to see some Sammy, I'm sure, and maybe he'll have more of an opportunity. The trade talk is kind of cooling off, so I don't know Where we sit on a goalie trade, a forward trade, no real idea at the moment. So this it's a huge period of uncertainty. I guess if I had to roll this all up into one big ball, I would roll it up and I'd stick it in a container called uncertainty. Uncertainty. We don't know. We don't know if we have trade prospects. We don't know where our goaltending's at. We don't know if this team can consistently put together good games for 60 minutes every single night, every week, until the playoffs and all the way through. We don't know. And it sucks. It's insanely unfortunate. They have a talented group. We still have some guys hurt. Obviously, Oshie, Mantha, Ovi's on COVID. Vitek's injured. It keeps adding up for the Caps. They are still not the most injured team in the NHL, if you can believe that. But as far as teams who are in a playoff position, I think they're near the top. They might not be the top, but I think they're near. So looking for a way to get out of it. Hopefully we'll find some luck coming out of the All-Star game. Vitek hopefully going to be getting back sooner than later. Ovi, maybe we'll see him next week. Maybe we won't, depending on if he can come up with a negative test or not. No real news on Oshie yet. No real news on Mantha. So I think we're going to be waiting a while to see those two still. Unfortunate. I think missing Oshie and Mantha both. Obviously, Mantha's been out for a while. I've talked about it a lot. Missing both these guys, and especially if they're going to be missing both of them for an extended period, I think that really necessitates a forward trade. Now, obviously, I'm not the GM. I can't make it happen, but I think just, Mantha you look at for scoring. Oshie you absolutely look at for scoring. He does so many things, too. I mean, he plays PK from time to time. He's huge on the power play. He's a big energy guy. He scores big goals. He, contributes hugely on the offense. And I think missing him is just, I don't know. I feel like you need to at least find somebody who can fill that gap a little bit. So that's what we're looking for. Maybe some clarity on this whole trade situation, clarity as far as what this team is and if they can do it when it's going to matter most, and if they can even get there. Because if this 500 play continues, who knows? All it takes is a Columbus or a Detroit picking up 5-6 game win streak. The Caps may suddenly find their lead in that playoff position, that second wildcard spot, shrinking rapidly. So a big dose, a good cold hard dose of reality and pessimism to end it today. We're looking for consistency. That's what the theme's been for months now, and it's just going to continue until this team can find a way to put everything together. So, hopefully, our boys Kuzi and Willie have fun in Vegas. All-Stars festivities, that should be a blast. Hopefully, the rest of the boys get some rest, get a little R&R, clear the mind, get away from the rink for a while, and come back ready to go. So, that's what I'm looking for. I am looking for this team to look much more competitive in these next two games, regardless of if they win or lose. If they start playing more competitive, more consistently, better games, playing better games, that will lead to the result. So that's what we're looking for. I will be back with you. We're cutting her a little short today. I will be back with you after the Canadiens game. A little gaffe there by me. I apologize. After the Canadiens game. No fan questions today. Anybody watching? Question about the Caps, question about any team in the NHL, any player, leave it below. I will answer it in the next video. I greatly appreciate your submissions. I enjoy answering questions. So leave it below. Leave a like, leave a comment. I will be back with you after that Canadiens game. Hopefully talking about 2 wins. Hopefully talking about Wilson and Kuznetsov ripping up All-Star Weekend. And finally, until next time, go Caps. Everybody get healthy. Let's get this train back on the tracks and get it really rolling downhill, pick up some momentum, and hit this final stretch of the season flying. Until next time, go Caps.